The all-new Silverado brought a fresh pair of V8 engines into the spotlight. The new 5.7 and 6.6-liter units are stepping in to replace older powertrains still seen across GM's full-size SUV lineup. That naturally puts the 2027 Chevy Suburban right in the center of the conversation. If these engines are really the next step forward, what does it actually change for a big three-row SUV like this? Do they even need a full drivetrain swap? There's also the bigger question of whether these new V8s can clear up some of the complaints that have followed the outgoing setups. And of course, timing matters just as much. Even if everything lines up, the real-world rollout into a model like Suburban might not happen overnight. Time to break it down. New V8 engines. The lineup is already out in the open, but not every detail is locked in yet. What we do know is that the direction is pretty clear. The base engine is a 5.7-liter, and early projections put it right around 400 horsepower. That's a solid jump compared to its predecessor delivering 375 ponies. Above it sits the larger 6.6-liter unit. That one is about to land closer to 480 horsepower, offering plenty of muscle for towing and highway merges. Sounds like a strong step forward. But there's a catch that's just impossible to ignore. These engines were brought in largely to move past the older setups that got hit with reliability complaints inside General Motors' full-size trucks and SUVs. A big part of that story has been the Dynamic Fuel Management System, or DFM, which has been linked to long-term concerns by a lot of owners. And here's the twist: that same system is still sticking around with the new V8s. That decision raises eyebrows because it carries over the very tech many people expected to see phased out. For something like the 2027 Chevrolet Suburban, which depends on reputation as much as performance, it puts a bit of a shadow over the whole update. However, there's one bright side. The Duramax diesel remains in the mix. Among the engine options, it still looks like the most familiar and steady choice, especially for drivers who prioritize long-distance durability and consistent behavior under load. Join us as we explore the world of wheels. Subscribe now and buckle up for the adventure. Other changes. Now let's line up the all-new Silverado and Suburban side by side. The truck is fully new, with updated engines and a sharper overall look, but you can clearly see where some of that design thinking is coming from. There's a bit of Suburban influence in the way the proportions and front-end details are shaped. It almost feels like SUV set the tone some while ago, and the pickup world is now catching up to that direction. Usually it's the other way around. At the same time, both vehicles still keep their own identity, just with a smaller gap than before. GM seems more comfortable sharing design language across the lineup now, instead of separating two styling approaches as strictly as they used to. Or as they did inside. The new Silverado interior feels more futuristic than you'd expect from a workhorse. A layout with big screens leans heavily into tech-first thinking. It almost looks like it belongs in an SUV that's trying to feel premium rather than something built for job sites. The Suburban goes in a slightly different direction. It still feels modern, but the layout comes across more practical and structured, almost like it would make more sense in a traditional truck cabin. It creates this odd contrast where the pickup feels more showcase tech, while the SUV feels more grounded and familiar. And depending on who's looking at it, that swap in character either makes perfect sense or feels slightly backwards. Release date and price. At this point, the exact debut date still isn't pinned down. It's clear that the Chevrolet Suburban is moving straight into the new generation of V8 engines without much delay. General Motors isn't stretching the rollout or keeping old powertrains around longer than needed. So expect the 2027 model year to be the one that fully carries the new 5.7 and 6.6-liter V8s across the lineup. The downside, though, is hard to ignore. Price is going up. A lot of that comes down to investment. General Motors has poured close to $1 billion into developing and updating these powertrains. That kind of spending doesn't stay in the background for long. It eventually shows up on the sticker. The entry-level versions will feel the increase, but the real jump will likely hit higher trims even harder. especially something like high country, where buyers are already paying for luxury features on top of capability. In simple terms, everything is getting more expensive across the board, not just because of inflation or trim changes, but because the hardware underneath is newer, more complex, and significantly more costly to bring to market. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you next time.